All right, what's going on, folks? Well, welcome back to another episode of Outlaw TV.
I'm a whiskey drinking SOB. If you don't like that, then you won't like me. I'm an outlaw. I said I'm an outlaw.
We're gonna keep this intro short. It was brought to my attention on last week's episode that too much talking and not enough working. So yeah, we're gonna nip this one in the butt. Just keep the intro real short, bring you back up to speed from where we were at from last week, and basically run through getting these parts made. So I've brought my template from the house. Here's my template right here. Okay. Again, link down in the bottom in the description will be the link from last week's video, basically showing you where we left off. So here's where we're going to start off at. So we got our template, we're here at the shop, we got all our pieces together, we got our steel together, etc. So let's just jump right into this one, okay? All right, so here's our flat sheet of steel. There's briefly some marks on it already because I did it and didn't like the way it looked, so this is doing take 2 here. So here's our flat sheet of steel. It runs way over there. It's about an 8-foot piece. So what we're going to do is we're going to mark it up, make it really easy to the piece that we're going to use, make it easy to work with, basically. So we're going to cut it down into a smaller piece and then cut our 2 pieces out of it. We're going to take our template, we're going to lay it right here. We're going to put it down this edge because we know this edge is straight, and we're going to put it down this edge because we know this edge is straight as well. Okay, hold it down, put even pressure all the way around it. Here's our soapstone. Take our soapstone and mark it. Damn it, my finger was in the way. So there's one fish plate. Okay, now in order to make this really easy on us so we get good straight lines, we're going to take our speed square and we're going to mark off that top line where we're going to cut, so there's enough room for 2 of these guys on this little plate that we got here, or that we're going to make here. So there's our second straight line. Okay, now we're going to take our template, we're basically going to put it upside down. Again, using this edge because we know it's straight, and using that straight line that we just made. Our template's upside down now, but it'll still work. And we're going to mark it like this. Just like that, we're going to mark it down that edge, down that sweeping edge, because everything else is already marked. Okay, so there's 2 fish plates. Okay, now I'm going to put a little X right here, just as a reminder to myself that that piece is the piece that's going to actually be cut out. I tend to do that because when you're using these cutting discs, you can't make that nice sweeping cut in it. So I'll just chew it halfway straight, then I'll go back with a sanding disc and smooth it all out. So let's get into doing that part. Can't forget your safety glasses. Safety glasses are extremely important. Okay. Back the camera off here a little bit so that way sparks and the dirt and all that kind of stuff from this grinder doesn't affect it. My hand's going to be in your way, you're not going to be able to see, but anyways. You want to get as straight a cut as possible. The best way to get these cuts as straight as possible is eliminate all vibration. I don't have this clamped down. I've been doing this for a long time, so we're going to make do with what we got for right this minute. Okay, and our piece is cut off. There's what we got. You still see our marks, etc. So we're good to go from there. So basically, if you just take your time, you can get you a nice, clean, straight cut with a grinder. Myself personally, I've learned that if you hold the grinder at a perfect 90-degree versus laying it out this way or laying it out that way, it's kind of hard to get the feel for, but you hold it at a perfect 90-degree, you'll get a nice clean cut that won't look like you chewed it out with your teeth. We got some weird cuts in it here and there, but that's nothing. The sanding disc will take care of that and make it nice and pretty and clean. So now we're going to move on to step 2, where we're going to cut the individual pieces out and start making them look like a part. So here you can see I got it clamped to the table. That's basically to eliminate vibration and to eliminate basically weird cuts because the metal gets away from you. So now we're going to start cutting these sweeps. Okay, here we go. Okay, what I just did there was just a basic simple scour cut. I took the grinder, put it on the metal, and just let it drag to make a more distinctive mark in the material. And for doing these arcs like this, that's basically what I'm going to do. I'm going to let it scour cut across the top, scour cut across the top, scour cut across the top, until basically it cuts, whittles, whatever you want to say, this piece out. And it's not going to look great right now, but that's what your sanding disc is for. It's to go back and clean it up, make all your imperfections go away, and make everything look pretty. Let's get into this cut. Okay, I've gotten to where I can just about break through it. So I'm gonna bend it down a little bit, give me a little bit more room in the cut. And it's pretty much cut. It's just hanging there by a couple of little pieces. And there we go. There's our piece. You can see that the blade isn't perfectly running it, but again, that's what the sanding disc is for. So there's one done. All right, here we go. We're going on to the second cut with a brand new cutting disc. Again, now I'm gonna cut on this side of the line because my line is out here. My part is back here on this side where the clamp is at. All right, here we go. Again, I just did a scour cut along my arc. Now we're getting ready to start digging it in. I went and grabbed me just a regular old pair of slip joint pliers, just so I can reach over here and grab a hold of this metal and bend it, break it the rest of the way, because it's hot. I don't want to burn myself. Toss it down on the ground. Unhook our clamp. And it's hot, but there's our second fish blade. And there's our two pieces side by side. Okay, now we're gonna go and switch over to a sanding disc and start cleaning them up, making them look pretty, and then go to the next process, etc. So just basically 4.5 inch, there's camera, 4.5 inch 40 grit flapper disc, sanding disc, whatever you want to call it. I call them sanding disc, so that's what I'm talking about when we refer to that. All right, so here's our part. Here's our part. This edge needs to be cleaned up, and this edge needs to be cleaned up on this particular part. And I'm gonna go ahead and run my sanding disc along here and along here just to make everything nice and pretty and blended. Then I'm gonna go back in and run a 45 Then I'm going to go back in and run a 45 on all these edges. Not a heavy 45, just a nice little 45 just to get everything a nice little pretty finish to it. And we'll move to the next part. All right, so take our camera, we're going to put it right there. Grinder on. So there's our first edge. There's our sweep pretty much done. Basically, like I said, just grind it on down, make it look clean. And then I put a little bit of an edge right here. Basically, more than anything is at this point in the process was to knock the burrs off. And the next process, we'll clean it up and address it more. So there's that. There's our second edge cleaned up. For you new guys, man, I'd really highly suggest when you're doing something like this to go ahead and clamp the part down. Again, like I've said before, I've been doing this a long time. My hands have calluses on them. The hot metal doesn't bother me too much. It does, but it doesn't bother me tremendously. And then secondly, if by chance the part got away from you, it could fly back and hit you, grinder could cut you, you know, stuff like that. So, you know, for you newer guys that are trying to do what I'm doing here as a first time, second time, you know, whatever, just think about your safety, man. Clamp parts down. Don't do what I do, do as I say. Okay, there we go. We've basically got our part cleaned all the way around. Got the edge knocked off of it to knock all the burrs off, etc. Here's our template. Here's our part. Line everything up. So it's a little bit bigger in some places, but for the most part, it matches my template. It came out exactly as I wanted it to. So that's good. I'm gonna go ahead and do the next part off camera, just because it's going to get redundant if I do the other part the same right here in front of you. And then we'll move on to the next process. Alright, and there's both parts pretty much cleaned up. If you lay them down on something flat, you can see that one part, I don't know if you can see this in the video, but the outside one, the one on this side, is a little bit bigger in the sweep. For what I'm doing, it doesn't really matter too much. One's going to be on one side of the car, the other one's going to be on the other side of the car, so you won't be able to tell that they aren't exactly the same. If you're a perfectionist and you want it to be the same, there you go, you can see the differences in it there. If you're a perfectionist and you want it to be the same, I'll show you how to do that in another video, but I'll briefly tell you what I'll typically do. This isn't the right tool, but it'll give me an explanation here. What I'll basically do is I'll take a pair of vice grips, clamp a pair of vice grips on it, clamp a pair of vice grips on it there, clamp a pair of vice grips on it somewhere else. I don't really care how big the part is. I try to use 3 different vice grips. This way I can take one off and move it if it's in the way of my grinder. And everything still stays the same. But anyways, you can take and clamp these 3 vice grips on here to where the parts are sitting side by side, pretty much mirror finished. And then you can come back and work this line to get them in exactly the same with your sanding disc. But like I said, for this particular part, the part is not going to be done even at the end of this video, because it's gonna change once we put it on the car. So I might go back in and do that later, but for right now I'm not worried about it. For video's sake, we're just going to go ahead and just keep on rolling. This is the untouched part. This is the finished part. Okay, so what I've done, let me set this finished part down over here. All right, so what I've done is I'm using my trusty bench grinder. There's several different ways of doing this. You could do it on a belt sander. You could do it on you could do it by hand with a little hand grinder with finer disc paper and stuff like that on it. But bench grinders always seem to work. This is just a regular old 6-inch bench grinder. It's got a hard stone on one side and a wire wheel on the other. So basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to run all these edges right here with the hard stone all the way around, both sides. All I'm doing is trying to make a nice, pretty, clean edge on it. Now what's going to happen is when the hard stone hits this, it's going to kind of fold the metal over. So you're going to get a little burr on the back sides of all this stuff. Then I'll go back in with this wire wheel and break the burr off on the wire wheel. And I'm going to break it from this angle here at a 45 here, and then I'm going to break it at a pretty much a straight across motion, which will break all the burrs off of it, make everything look nice and uniform. And then of course I'm going to use the wire wheel to take all the rust scale off of it. So that's pretty much how everything goes. And at that point it could be a finished part, but you know, we're going to go about it a different way, because I'll explain a little bit further after I finish this out. We'll go over to the frame. I'll show you where this is going to go and explain to how this part is going to change even more than what it is at the end of this video. So I'm just taking my hard stone, lightly hitting it. I mean, it's real lightly hitting it. You can see what I'm doing. Pretty simplistic. Again, like I said, just very lightly hitting it, just to give it a finished look to it. And there's our finished look. That one could use a little bit more. I don't think I did it at all. Okay, so now everything's got like a nice little clean edge on it, except it's burred up. We'll go over here to this guy. We're going to do this edge first. Now it's got a nice different look to it. Go here, do this edge. And again, like I said, I'm just hitting it at a 45. Just to basically clean everything off. Flip it over. Doesn't hurt to rub your finger down it, make sure it's nice and clean and smooth. Okay, it's pretty much smooth, so now I'm going to go ahead and start taking the rust scale off of it. Whoa, almost dropped it. So there we go. That's pretty much it. Edges are all nice and clean. Rust is removed. Got our 2 parts. So there we go. We just made some parts, some really cool looking parts in my opinion. Again, if you don't have a bench grinder to do this with, you could do it with a hand file. Just basically hit these edges here at a little bit of a 45. You know, just to dress them and make everything look nice and clean and have a nice turn to it. I don't know what you would call it. Finished, I guess is what we would call it. So let's go out here to this frame and let me show you where these guys go. Here's our T-bucket frame. It's sitting out here in the yard, kind of just waiting for its chance to come into the shop and do something. As you can see, it's pretty much just a bare bones frame at this point. 2x3 square tubing. It's got a kick up in the back. It's got a cross member in it in the back, but the cross member is just tacked, so I don't even know if it's going to go where it is or if it's going to move. And then up in the front, we got a tubular cross member. Here's our part, and here's our frame. So with this tubular cross member in here, what we've basically done is I took with a hole saw and drilled a hole in one wall of this 2x3, slid our tubular cross member in it, and it's just tacked in a couple of places. It's still square out here in the front. We still have to wrap it and make it contour to the tube. So that's what I meant by these parts probably aren't done. This part's gonna weld right here. And basically that's what you're gonna get. And like I said, these parts are just a beauty part. All I'm looking for is that I've got this sweeping little contour right here in the frame. I did it on my Roadster. I thought it was a nice little touch. We've got to do in the back where we've done kick-ups in the frame. We've got to build fish plates. So we're going to build something like this, something with a crazy arc in it versus just a regular old diamond fish plate. So, you know, I just kind of figured we'd showcase some coolness in here. So like I said, it's going to weld to the frame like that. So once we round this out to match the tube, we'll probably go in and round these guys. So that's pretty much the gist of it, man. We've just made some cool parts for the Roadster, for this T-bucket. All right, so that pretty much wraps up part 2 of this Fabrication Friday. So what we've basically done is just a recap. We took and in the previous video I showed you how to make some templates, showed you how to transfer it over to metal. And then in this video, we took our template that we made last week and transferred it over to a piece of 3/16 flat steel and welded out these really cool brackets here. Again, well, like I said, these things here, they're pretty much just a pretty piece at this point, but they're an aesthetic piece for the build. So, you know, it's pretty simple, man. I've been doing this a really long time. I started off with doing this pretty much just like in this video with very little to no tools. You know, I had you know, typical mechanic stuff. I had some wrenches, I had some sockets, I had some screwdrivers, I had pliers, I had this, that, and the other, whatever. So you know, when I started deciding that I was going to fabricate stuff, I hate to spend money on stuff that I know is stupid simple, that I can sit down. Let's just say, for instance, we're gonna buy I don't know, whatever you want to say. We're gonna buy a bracket. There's a prime example right there. I just thought of one. Motor mounts. Okay, so I use this company. I'm not gonna name drop on here because I don't want to give them any kind of advertisement, but I use this company that I buy 95% of my parts from. And what upsets me is I'll order parts for a customer, they'll come in, and I'll sit down and look at them and I'm like, man, that's 3/16 or 1/4 inch plate is all that is. And some really cool cuts and a couple of welds. In the beginning, when I first started doing this, I kind of had that mentality. Why am I gonna spend $100 for a set of motor mounts? Technically, it doesn't make sense to make them. If you're doing it for yourself, it makes a ton of sense to make them. If you're doing them for a customer like I do, it doesn't make sense because you have the overhead involved in it. I go buy that 3/16 plate that we just used out there. Okay, I have to buy it in 24 foot sticks, and then I have to pay them to cut it in half because my truck bed can't carry a 24 foot stick of steel. So I pay them to cut it in half at 12 footers. We bring it back here to the shop. That is easily close to, it's been a while since I bought some, but I think we spent 50 bucks on that the last time we bought some. So I'm out 50 bucks right there. Now let's just say your going rate, let's make it easy, is 50 bucks an hour. Okay, so now you're gonna sit down, you're gonna design this part. You're gonna have an hour and a half in designing it. Now you're gonna put it on metal, make a template. There's another 45 minutes to an hour. Okay, so let's just say you had an hour and a half in the first one, you got 30 minutes there, that's 2 hours. Okay, now you're gonna cut it out of steel. If you don't have a plasma cutter, you don't have a torch, whatever, it's gonna take time to do it with that cutter, that grinder. This video, I'm gonna do it all real time, no fast forwarding through anything, so you can see the time frame that it took to make these. Video's probably gonna be long, but anyways, you'll be able to see the time frame that it took to make these. So let's just say it takes another 2 hours. You got an hour and a half, you got 2 hours in prep, and you got 2 hours of cutting them and making them. You got 4 hours in them at 50 bucks an hour. That's 200 bucks plus the 50 bucks you spent on a steel. You could have bought a set of motor mounts for 100 bucks, or you can make them with your own style, your own flair, your own panache, whatever you want to say, and you've got $250 on it. But on the other side, the flip side of that coin is you have the satisfaction to say, I made it myself. So, you know, it goes both ways, hand in hand. When you don't have money to buy parts, it's a whole lot easier. Your time, if you're making them for yourself, your time is not an issue. So that's basically what we're doing. We're trying to teach you how to be able to get away from the buying and doing the build it yourself thing, the built not bought. So anyways, we're gonna wrap this up. We're getting long here. I think this outro is already, looks like it's around 5 minutes already. So, you know, I'm sure the video is gonna be quite a bit long. If you stuck it through the video, I appreciate it. And you know what, I'm gonna do something for you. I'm gonna give away 2 Outlaw t-shirts to the first 2 you know what, I'm gonna do it random. I'm not gonna give it away to the first 2 comments. I'm gonna give away these 2 Outlaw t-shirts to a random comment. But what you have to do is you have to put the word t-shirt somewhere in your comment so that I know you watched all the way to the end of this video and I know that you want a t-shirt. Pretty much plain and simple. So there it is. I'm gonna give away 2 Outlaws Riding Custom t-shirts. You wanna know what they look like? I was wearing one in the previous Fabrication Friday episode. Go check it out there. It's gonna be linked in the description down below so you can follow along. So like I said, giving away 2 t-shirts randomly, and you have to comment somewhere in your comment. It has to be the word t-shirt. All right, thanks a lot for watching Outlaw TV. I hope y'all liked Fabrication Friday. Like, comment, subscribe, and if you want to see me make something, holler at me, man. Just put it in the comments. Tell me what you want to see us make, and we'll make it. All right, talk to y'all later. Thanks a lot.